Howdy, my name is Nonat, and welcome to my deep dive into the Alchemist. If you watched last week's video on the Investigator, this is going to be in the exact same style. We're just going from the first page to the last page of the Alchemist class. Now, I want to preface this. Obviously, alchemists work based off their alchemical items that they craft. I do not have the time or the energy to go into every single alchemical item that could possibly be crafted. And this is how I'm going to be handling all of these spellcasting classes as well. Unfortunately, to keep these videos under 3 hours long, I'm not going to be going into things like crafted items and spells. I'm just going to be focusing on what the class does. So, at first glance, some things may seem weaker based on their description, but remember that it's all to be used in tandem with their crafted items, or with spells in the case of spellcasters. But let's not waste any more time. We're going to be here for at least 45 minutes to an hour, maybe longer, who knows. So starting off with the first page, which is that the Alchemist has Intelligence as its key ability score, as well as 8 hit points per level. And while I do keep comparing Alchemists to spellcasters, they are still quite different. An Alchemist can fight on the front lines if built the right way. So that 8 hit point is a decent base for them. As for starting proficiencies, they start with Expert in Fortitude saves and Reflex saves, and Trained in Perception and Will. Already, again, a step ahead of most spellcasters in that 2 experts and 2 trains, pretty good, pretty average. For skills, they always start with crafting and 3 plus their intelligence modifier of skills, so that'll usually equal out to 7 skills if you have a plus 4 to your intelligence. They're only trained with light armor, simple weapons, but they are specifically trained in alchemical bombs. Now, this is kind of important. The reason they point out that they are trained in alchemical bombs is because alchemical bombs are technically martial weapons. So if you hand these bombs off to a fighter or a ranger, they're actually trained with them as well, even without being specifically trained in bombs. Moving on to their basic class feature, and their whole bread and butter is alchemy. Basically, I'm going to try to condense this. A lot of this is flavor. But in Pathfinder 2e, normally if you want to make alchemical items, you need to use the crafting skill, make a check, spend money and time, and then you will have your alchemical items, usually crafted in batches. Alchemists are obviously very good at this. You can see right up there that they start with the alchemical crafting feat, even if they don't meet the prerequisites, and they also get 4 common first-level alchemical formulas. Now that's already great. The Alchemist starts with the ability to spend downtime crafting alchemical items. Perfect. But what makes the Alchemist a real day-to-day, still useful class is their infused reagents, which especially for new players to the system, seems to be where they get a little caught up and confused with the Alchemist. The whole infused reagent system is sort of why I've always compared them to spellcasters. Similar to spell slots, each day, you get a number of infused reagents. The amount you get is equal to your level plus your intelligence modifier. Every day during your daily preparations, you can use these reagents to create alchemical items for that day. Now, these alchemical items are special. Because they were made using infused reagents, they don't last as long as alchemical items that were crafted through normal means. Items crafted with infused reagents only last 24 hours, and at the start of your next daily preparation, any leftover items you have become nullified and no longer potent, and thus just don't exist anymore. The way you make the items during your daily preparations is with your advanced alchemy. This is the quick, speedy, daily alchemy we've been talking about. It does not require time, money, or even a crafting check when you make items this way. Effectively, during your daily preparations, you pick any alchemical formulas you know with a level equal to or less than your advanced alchemy level, which your advanced alchemy level is always equal to your character level as an alchemist. From there, you can spend 1 batch of infused reagents to make 2 of any alchemical item from the formulas you know. Let's say we're a level 1 alchemist with a plus 4 intelligence. That means we get 4 batches of reagents from our intelligence and 1 from our level, totaling 5 batches of reagents. We can use each of those 5 batches during daily preparations to make advanced alchemy items that are equal to or lower level than us, so we can make any level 1 or lower alchemical items. Especially at level 1, these will usually either be elixirs of life or bombs. So we could spend 5 batches of infused reagents to make 10 items, because one batch of reagents makes 2 of the same item. So we could make, say, 6 bombs and 4 elixirs of life, and that would be all of our daily infused reagents. Easy enough. However, let's make it more complicated. All alchemists begin with quick alchemy. Sometimes you may not want to spend all of your infused reagents during your daily preparation. That same level 1 alchemist with a +4 intelligence might save 1 or 2 batches of reagents. Why would you do this? Because with quick alchemy, for one action, you can instantly make any one item that you could make with advanced alchemy. Now this comes with some limitations. Because you can make anything you want or need right there on the fly, there are 2 sort of penalties for making it this way. The first is that you only make 1 single item from your infused reagents, whereas if you make it during your daily preparations, you make 2. So you're getting half as many items when you make them in this manner. Additionally, instead of lasting for 24 hours, these items you make with quick alchemy only last 1 turn. So if you make a bomb, you better craft it and throw it that turn, because at the start of your next turn, it's no longer potent and basically doesn't exist anymore. So quick alchemy is great if you need something right then and there, otherwise you're better off going with advanced alchemy during your daily preparations. But I'd say always keep 1 or 2 batches of reagents available for quick alchemy, just for if you need that fire damage, or that ice damage, or maybe you just need a healing potion. All of your formulas are kept in your alchemical formula book, and every time you level up, you gain 2 common formulas for an alchemical item equal to or lower than your level. On top of this one's more for the GMs out there, alchemists can still learn formulas, whether by buying them or finding them. So GMs, if you have an alchemist in your party, don't be afraid to leave interesting potion formulas and bomb formulas just in dungeons, in a desk somewhere. Let them find a moderate elixir of life formula. They'll feel like they just found something cool, and they won't need to spend a formula on a future level learning it. Next up, we have the Alchemist subclasses. There are 3 in the core rulebook, as well as 1 in the Advanced Player's Guide, which I will be going over here. These research fields offer additional starting formulas at first level, as well as some very minor bonuses. When you take the Bomber research field, you get 2 additional alchemical formulas specifically for alchemical bombs, and when you throw alchemical bombs with the splash trait, you can choose to only hurt your primary target with the splash damage and not have it affect adjacent targets like it normally would. This is incredibly useful if you are throwing a bomb at a target with some allies next to them and you just don't want to hurt your allies. Really useful. The Chirurgeon is the healing subclass for the Alchemist, and unfortunately, it is kind of lame. You start with 2 additional formulas in your formula book, and they can only be chosen from these 3. Lesser Antidote, Lesser Anti-Plague, and Lesser Elixir of Life. Those are your only choices if you pick the Chirurgeon, which I apologize if I'm saying wrong. It's just really fun to say. The other benefit is that as long as your proficiency rank is trained in medicine, you can attempt a crafting check instead of a medicine check for any of medicine's untrained and trained uses. What I don't fully understand about this is it lets you use crafting in place of medicine, which is awesome. But you still need to put skill increases in medicine. You need to be trained in medicine to use this. So it's just not great. Like, it's not bad. If you have a 0 to wisdom and a +4 intelligence, yeah, this makes your medicine checks 4 better even if you don't have any wisdom, which it's good. But why even make them need to be trained in medicine? It's just not that good, and it doesn't even get any better. You can never use crafting to make expert medicine checks with crafting. So yeah, Chirurgeon is a pretty lackluster subclass of Alchemist. Now, the Mutagenist has been completely misunderstood by a very large portion of the Pathfinder 2e player base, and that's because Paizo wrote it wrong. You heard me right, I'll be explaining the difference here in just a minute, but first off, you get 2 additional formulas, as long as those 2 formulas are first level mutagen formulas, and everything up here is pretty much wrong. Anybody can gain the benefit of any mutagen. Mutagens do not need to be crafted for a specific person. This is from the playtest and was removed, but not deleted. Additionally, everybody's unarmed strikes increase in proficiency along with their simple weapons. As we can see here, they actually made a lot of mistakes when writing the Alchemist. First off, the reagent does not start with the lesser elixir of life, they start with the minor elixir of life, because lesser is for 3rd level characters to create. Next, we can see in the mutagenist section, remove the second paragraph, which provides an obsolete benefit. Replace it with the following free action. Mutagenic flashback. For a free action, once per day, you can regain the effects of one mutagen you have ingested that day for 1 minute. So if you drank a mutagen that boosted your attack rolls, I don't know if there are any, I'm going off the top of my head, I haven't played an Alchemist yet, but if you had a mutagen that boosted your attack rolls and you drank that earlier in the day, well, at the start of a new encounter, you can just, for a free action, regain that effect. You don't even need to interact to draw and use your mutagen. You just have it. And this makes the mutagenist so much more powerful. So I wanted to make a point to point that out, because everybody misunderstands the mutagenist, not for their own fault, but because it was written incorrectly. And the final research field for the Alchemist is the Toxicologist. Don't worry about everything on this side of the screen, we'll be getting to that later because those are from different feats, but at first level, you start with 2 extra formulas for first level alchemical poisons, and instead of taking 2 actions, it only costs 1 action for you to apply poison to a weapon you're holding. On top of this, weaker poisons remain relevant for toxicologists because instead of using that poison's DC, you can instead use your Alchemist class DC, which improves every time you level up. So if you're a level 10 Alchemist, then even your level 1 poisons still have a pretty high DC because it's using your class DC. And aside from a feat, that's everything we get at first level, so we're going to start going through the class features, and then once we finish up there, we'll be heading to the feats. So, skill feats, normal, general feats, normal, skill increases, ability boosts, ancestry feats. Everything's pretty typical for any class up until 5th level when we get field discovery, which basically just gives you a new bonus improvement depending on your subclass. If you are a bomber, you can now create 3 bombs instead of 2 bombs when you create bombs using your infused reagents. Honestly, these are all just about the same. The chirurgeon can make 3 potions instead of 2 potions, as long as they're, elixirs. The mutagenist can make 3 mutagens instead of just 2 mutagens. Ooh, and let's see, what do we think the toxicologist is gonna get? 3 poisons instead of 2 poisons? I'm surprised. It's just an upgrade depending on your alchemist subclass. It makes you a little more efficient at crafting what you're good at. Expert in bombs, expert in will saves. Perpetual infusions at 7th level is basically when alchemists get cantrips. Depending on your subclass, you are given a list to choose from. You can choose 2 of the alchemical items in that list to make whenever you want using quick alchemy. It still follows the same rules, where that they wear off after about 6 seconds because it's 1 round, so you have to make them and use them instantly, but they don't cost infused reagents. So we can see that a bomber can make any lesser alchemical bomb without using infused reagents. So the bomber especially now has just infinite weak little bomb cantrips, which is not bad to have, especially because you can take them for any element. Especially the Thunderstone, which I believe is sonic damage, so I don't believe there's any magical cantrip in the game that deals sonic damage, so correct me if I'm wrong. The chirurgeon can only take antidote and anti-plague, that's it. The mutagenist can pick from, pretty much any lesser mutagen, and again, following the theme, they completely oversimplified it here, and so the toxicologist can just choose any 2 level 1 poisons, which, honestly, I think the toxicologist gets the best deal here. Because of their research field at level 1, their DCs for these weaker poisons go up with their class level. I suppose the bomber is just as good because their accuracy goes up with their class level, with their proficiency. So, toxicologist and bomber definitely make it out the best in this level. Mutagenist isn't bad. You can now have infinite mutagens. They won't be your strongest ones, but they're still usable. The chirurgeon is just kind of, It's good when you get poisoned. class DC up to expert, perception checks up to expert, and double brew at 9th level. Double brew basically lets you use quick alchemy twice for one action, and they don't even need to be the same item. So if you are injured but you still want to attack that turn, for one action you can spend 2 batches of infused reagents to make a healing potion and a bomb. You have 2 actions left on your turn, you chug the healing potion, and you throw the bomb. Bam. Overall, it's a little situational, and I don't know how often you plan to do that because of the bad conversion rate of quick alchemy, but it's still great to have the option. If you want to, you can absolutely in one turn go healing potion, healing potion. I'm fine. Juggernaut, Master and Fortitude saves and auto-crit successes. Perpetual Potency is simply an upgrade to their cantrips. The bombs they chose at level 5 are now moderate bombs. The Chirurgeon gets moderate Antidote and Anti-Plague, the Mutagenist gets moderate versions of those 2 mutagens, and because alchemical poisons don't all have lesser, minor, greater, etc., the Toxicologist actually gets to pick 2 brand new level 5 or lower alchemical poisons to be able to make on demand whenever they need to. It's just a nice little bump, your cantrips get stronger, and you now never have a reason to ever use anything worse than a moderate item. 13th level's pretty big for all alchemists because it is your Greater Field Discovery, which is a straight upgrade based on your subclass. Bombers can now splash up to 10 feet away from their target, or if they have the expanded splash feat, 15 feet out from their target, which is huge. You could easily hit 3, 4, or more targets with this one splash damage. The Chirurgeon finally gets a much-needed upgrade at 13th level where, if they use Quick Alchemy to make an Elixir of Life, the person using it restores maximum hit points. They do not need to roll. So this is incredible, especially if you use Double Brew. If you make 2 moderate Elixirs of Life and hand those off, or even just chug them both yourself, that's a ton of hit points on demand right there. The Mutagenist also gets a really solid upgrade. Normally, if you take a mutagen while you're already being affected by one, you lose the benefits of the first one. Now, you gain the benefits of both of them, but you still suffer the drawbacks of both. If you ever take a third mutagen, though, you choose one of the benefits to lose of the original 2. The Toxicologist Greater Field Discovery is really cool, but a little bit complicated. Effectively, you can now apply 2 separate poisons to the same weapon or piece of ammunition. The long and short of all of it is that all of the DCs, whether it's virulent or not, everything like that, the stages, is based on the weaker poison. If one poison has a DC of 25 and the other one is 30, the DC for the whole thing is 25. Effectively, both poisons come together to make one mega effect, but there's still only one DC. If one has 4 stages and one has 5 stages, the entire thing only has 4 stages, and you only apply the effects of the first 4 stages of both poisons. However, the big benefit of this is that each one at each stage both trigger. If you have a poison that deals 1d6 damage at stage 1, and one poison that causes sickened at stage 1, and you inflict them with this, then they are now taking 1d6 damage and sickened 1 at stage 1, and they scale together. It's a really cool idea, and I bet you could get super creative with this. Light armor up to expert, weapon specialization for some bonus damage, which will apply to your alchemical bombs, keep that in mind, those are weapons. Alchemical Alacrity almost seems like a bit too much. When you use Quick Alchemy for one action, you can spend 3 batches of reagents to make 3 items. Like, that's insane. You only have 2 actions left. You can't even use all those items. Someone's gonna have to take one from you and use it themselves, which can be good. And again, combined with the Chirurgeon's ability to just make 3 elixirs of life with this, that's a lot of guaranteed healing for one action. But I feel like Double Brew, most of the time, will be good enough. Master reflex saves and auto crit succeeds, Master to the Alchemical class DC, and then at 17th level, it's just another upgrade to your cantrips. Greater versions of your bombs for cantrips, greater versions of Antidote and Anti-Plague if you're a Chirurgeon, Mutagenist gets greater versions of their mutagens, and any 2 level 11 or lower alchemical poisons. And sadly, that's kind of the last big thing that alchemists get, because at level 19, all they get is light armor mastery. That's kind of disappointing. But it's fair because, honestly, alchemists have so much going for them just in the variety of items they can make. So that is all the class features, but don't worry, we may be 33 minutes into recording, but we're only halfway done. Let's get on with the feats. Starting off with the Alchemical Familiar, which basically functions like any other familiar, except it is a tiny little flesh and blood homunculus. It uses your intelligence modifier for its skill checks, and other than that, it's the exact same as a normal familiar. Alchemical Savant just makes you better at identifying other alchemical items. If you use the crafting skill to identify alchemy, you can do it as a single action instead of 10 minutes, which is awesome. And if you have the formula for the item you're identifying, you actually get a +2 to the check. The downside for this is that if the player asks, hey, do I have the formula for this? And the GM says yes, then they're going to be like, oh, so it's one of these 5 things at first level. I believe identify checks are supposed to be made secret by the GM, but I know not all tables play that way. Farlobber is pretty much a must-have for bomber alchemists in that it gives you a 30-foot range increment instead of 20 for your bomb throws. But on that same vein, Quick Bomber is also a must-have in that if you don't have this feat as an alchemist, you have to spend an action to draw a bomb and another action to throw it. With Quick Bomber, you can just draw, throw. It's basically like the Quick Draw feat, which I always rave about in all my martial class reviews, but for a class that needs to draw their weapon every single round, this basically removes the need to reload as an alchemist. Really good. Just take in this image, y'all. Just look at it. Look at it and love it. Thank you, Paizo. Thank you for this art. The final first level feat in the Advanced Player's Guide is Subtle Delivery. You can now deliver toxins with a blowgun. What's nice about this is that even if a creature takes no damage from the blowgun due to their resistance, the poison still gets applied. On top of that, if you critically hit with a blowgun, if the target fails their saving throw, it counts as a critical failure instead. When I first read this, I was not that impressed, but over time, and especially realizing the ignore resistance application, that's a pretty good first level feat. Resistance isn't super common early on, but especially at higher levels, that's not a bad thing to have. If you just can't hurt something, but you know you can poison it, having a blowgun on hand with this feat, not a bad idea. Poison resistance. You gain resistance to poison damage equal to half your level and a +1 bonus to all saving throws against poisons. Nothing wrong with that. Revivifying Mutagen is not worded very well in the book itself. It should just say, 1 action. Regain 1d6 hit points per 2 item levels of the mutagen currently active. The mutagen then ends. I suppose it needed to say the fact that you must be... they could have just put prerequisite, you have ingested an active mutagen. But yeah, effectively, for 1 action, you end an active mutagen effect on yourself, and you heal 1d6 hit points for every 2 item levels of the mutagen. This is really good. There's nothing that stops you from constantly doing this, and especially once you have perpetual infusions, you can just infinitely heal yourself by quick making a minor mutagen, heal. Mutagen heal, mutagen heal, mutagen heal, unless there's a limit that I'm not aware of. This sort of makes mutagenist alchemists one of the only classes with access to infinite healing after level 7. Granted, it's not a lot of healing, but this does mean that after combat, a mutagenist can just minor, like whatever the weakest one they have from their perpetual infusions, just revivify, and just go back to full health after every single encounter. Before we go into this next feat, I need to talk about the additive system. Effectively, there are some feats which grant the ability to add things to your alchemical bombs. These are known as additives, and any alchemical item can only have 1 additive. Now, each time the additive trait shows up, it also shows up with a number, and this number is what is added to the level of the item. So if you have a level 1 lesser alchemist fire, or minor alchemist fire, whatever. If you have a level 1 alchemist fire, and you imbue it with a feat that has additive 1, well, it's still a level 1 alchemist fire, but the item level becomes 2. This usually won't have a huge impact, but I'm sure there are times where it comes into play. This brings us to Smoke Bomb, which once per round as a free action, you can add something to a bomb you just made using Quick Alchemy. When the bomb detonates, it creates a 10-foot radius burst of smoke that lasts for 1 minute, and for that minute, any creature within the smoke is concealed. This smoke can still be dissipated by a large wind. In the APG, we have Demolition Charge, which is a huge feat that keeps going down over there. You can spend 1 minute to rig your bombs to an inanimate object. You attach up to 4 bombs to the object, and it creates a hazard in one square occupied or adjacent to the inanimate object. That hazard's stealth DC to detect it and thievery DC to disable it are equal to your class DC. There are 2 ways for this to go off. The first is if you are within 30 feet of this trap, for one single action, you, the alchemist, can detonate it. The other way it goes off is as a hazard reaction with the trigger of a creature moving into the hazard space. No matter which way it is triggered, whether manually or by the reaction, every bomb you attach to that space goes off and combines their damage for the sake of resistance. So if you have 4 fire bombs and they each do 2d6, well, that is 8d6 damage all combined into one number. So even if the creature has fire resistance, it only reduces that total number, not each individual bomb. Just like normal bombs splash damage, these bombs all deal their damage simultaneously and at the same time to all creatures. So if all of those fire bombs did 2 splash damage each, then every creature adjacent to the hazard takes 8 fire damage from the splash, and again, all combined, not individual, for the sake of resistance or weakness. That one's a mouthful, but it's kinda cool. But it's also one of those things that I, as the GM, would let my alchemist do. I wouldn't necessarily give him the ability to trigger them manually, but I feel like I'd let them set up a demolition charge on an object and set them off if they had some way to set them off. You know, I don't think this one necessarily needed to be a feat, but it's cool that it does have rules for it. I just know I have friends, if you're watching this, you know who you are, friend, who would very much, even without the feat, take their fire bombs, lay them at the foot of a statue, make a line of gunpowder and light it so that it goes down and sets off the bombs. And, you couldn't say, no, you can't do that. That doesn't work, I think the big thing for this feat is just it gives you the ability to detonate it or set a trigger for it. Calculated Splash is really powerful. When you throw a bomb with splash damage, you can have it deal damage equal to your intelligence modifier instead of the normal amount. To put this into perspective, the level 17 Major Alchemist's Fire deals 4 splash damage. At level 4, with an 18 intelligence, you can have all of your bombs deal 4 splash damage. Combine this once you're level 7 with the perpetual infusions and throwing infinite weak bombs, those bombs are still dealing 4 splash damage every single time. That's a great feat. That's a really great feat. Efficient Alchemy is a very interesting feat choice that just makes you better at normal alchemy, not your daily preparations or your quick alchemy. This makes you better at the alchemy downtime activity. Normally when you make alchemical items using the downtime activity, they're made in a batch of 4. This lets you spend the same amount of money, same amount of time, and same crafting check DC, but you make 8 in a batch instead of 4. If you're in a campaign with a lot of downtime between things and you can take a few days between adventures, this is phenomenal. I'd say this is one of the best feats for Pathfinder Society play. If you want everybody to love you, make a character alchemist that just takes efficient alchemy at level 4 and makes presents. So every time you show up to an organized play society game, you're like, hi guys, I made you some drinks for the road. Take some healing potions. Oh, Ranger, here, have a couple of bombs in case you need to do fire damage. You will be everybody's best friend. Enduring Alchemy is great if quick alchemy just doesn't last quite long enough for your tastes. Instead of quick alchemy items wearing off at the start of your next turn, they wear off at the end of your next turn. This is a feat that would make that triple brew feature at level 15, where you can use one action to make 3 items. That makes that a little bit more usable, because they last until the end of your next turn. Even with double brew, this is great. This means you can quick alchemy, make 2 bombs, throw one, and rather than being forced to throw the other one at your multiple attack penalty, you can wait until your next turn and still throw it. This is a good feat. Is it great? Not amazing, but it's good. The Healing Bomb 4th level feat from the Advanced Player's Guide is so great. As a free action, if you quick alchemy any elixir of life item, you can give it the bomb trait, as well as increasing its item level by 2. If you throw an elixir of life bomb at a willing target, you hit even on a failure, but not on a critical failure. If your strike hits a living target, the target regains hit points as if it had consumed the elixir. On a critical success, they also gain an item bonus to diseases and potions. Sadly, this does not have a splash healing, which I think that would have been great if maybe 1/4 of the bomb's item level was splash healing damage. I think that could be really neat. It also doesn't say that it hurts undead targets, unfortunately, so you can't throw these at the undead, but it's still a cool item. If you are even 60, 80 feet away from your target, because you hit even on a failure, this is a really good way to just yeet a heal at your target, even if you're not up close. I like this. Tenacious Toxins is okay. This is much more if you're going for, I think, great for subterfuge and more political campaigns where you're trying to slip a poison into someone's drink and make it last a bit longer, especially for longer poisons, like something that maybe puts someone in a coma. Effectively, any poison you create lasts a duration longer equal to the stage 1 interval. Let me explain what that means. Arsenic has a maximum duration of 5 minutes. If a creature is afflicted with arsenic at stage 1 lasts 1 minute before the poison progresses or regresses. This increases arsenic's maximum duration by 1 minute because of stage 1's 1 minute duration, so it instead lasts 6 minutes instead of 5. It's a cool idea. I bet there are some really cool poisons with really long durations. You can mess with that. Additionally, if I'm not wrong, there are poisons with only 1 stage total, and I think that would just double the duration. There's some promise with this one. I like it, and it's deceptively simple. Combine Elixirs is kinda cool, but overall gets outshined by the level 9 Double Brew class feature. Granted, this is 3 levels earlier. As a free action, when you use Quick Alchemy to craft an item that is at least 2 levels lower than your advanced alchemy level, so you can't be making your strongest items with this, you can add an additive 2 to make 2 elixirs into 1. You use 2 batches of ingredients, and then you gain the benefits of both elixirs when you drink this single one. As it says here, you can combine 2 elixirs of life to heal as if you drank both of them for 1 action. Or you can combine something like a Dark Vision elixir and an Eagle Eye elixir and gain both of those bonuses from 1 elixir. It's not bad. But again, at 9th level, when for 1 action you can just craft both anyway, it's not quite as good. Debilitating Bomb, same thing, is additive 2 onto an alchemical bomb at least 2 levels lower than your level. Basically, you can add a condition to your bomb. The choices are dazzled, deafened, flat-footed, or a -5 foot status penalty to speeds. And if the bomb hits, they have to attempt a fortitude save against your class DC. And if they fail, they're afflicted by the condition. Unfortunately, there's no critical failure result or anything like that, so it's okay. It's still once per round, and once you have cantrips, this is really good. Being able to make a target flat-footed with all of your cantrip bombs, that makes them instantly a lot better. Compare this to spellcaster cantrips, which really only get more damage as they level up. These being able to inflict conditions, that definitely gives them a lot of extra utility. And especially because you get cantrips at the next level, level 7, this gets pretty good. Directional Bombs is really neat. Rather than the splash being a 5-foot burst around the target you hit, the target instead becomes the beginning of a 15-foot cone. So you can almost think of this as like a backsplash. If you hit a target and there's 2 or 3 targets behind them, the bomb will then spray its splash in a cone behind the original target, which can lead to some really cool pool shot type bomb explosions, and I like that. Sticky poison comes with two really nice benefits. If you would lose your poison to anything besides application, basically if you critically failed or the target resisted all of your damage and didn't get inflicted with the poison, if you would lose your poison in this way, you get to make a flat DC 5 check, and if you succeed, you keep your poison. Doesn't get rid of it. Additionally, if you do apply the poison, you still get a DC 17 flat check, and if you succeed that, the target is both afflicted with the poison and you don't lose it. That's a really good feat for the toxicologist. Haha, this video will only be 45 minutes long, he said. It's been 58 minutes, and we're on level 8. Hey guys, I'm just gonna jump right in the middle here. I am super tired and I do not have the ability to be funny right now. So rather than do some funny skit, I'm just gonna ask, if you're enjoying the video so far, please do leave a like. It helps so very much. And maybe if you want to see more, you might even subscribe. And hey, maybe I got something wrong and you want to tell me all about how wrong I am in the comments. Please do. I implore you. It helps me out so very much. Sorry I don't have a funny skit or silly way to ask you to subscribe because it's funny. I'm very tired, but I hope you're enjoying the video and I'm going to let you get back to it. Thank you so much for liking, commenting, and subscribing. You're the best. Feral Mutagen improves your bestial mutagens. On top of everything else it gives you, your mutagen item bonus now also applies to intimidation checks, and additionally your claws and jaws gain the deadly D10 trait, adding an extra D10 to the dice roll whenever you critically hit. Finally, you only take a -1 to your armor class instead of -2, and you increase your jaws and claws damage die by 1 step. Basically, if you're a melee feral alchemist, you have to take this feat. Powerful alchemy is pretty phenomenal. Items you create with quick alchemy can now use your class DC instead of their item DC. I already talked about how great this is, that the toxicologist can do this on everything from level 1 for their poisons. So being able to do this on anything else is really good. Although it's only for quick alchemy, so if you prepare it in the morning, it's not quite as good. Thank you, baby! Love you too! Relationships, am I right? Sticky Bomb is another additive for alchemical bombs up to 2 levels lower than your level, and effectively it just adds persistent damage onto it. If a target takes a direct hit from your bomb, any splash damage that bomb may have becomes persistent damage of the same amount. And if you combine this with that feat from earlier that makes the persistent damage equal to your intelligence modifier, this applies a consistent 4 persistent damage per round of whatever element you inflicted. I mentioned this a lot in my top 10 classes video, but alchemists thrive on their ability to do everything. And there are certain enemies out there where if you don't have their weakness, they're almost impossible to kill. But there are things out there, if they have a weakness to ice, and you hit them with an ice sticky bomb, not only are they taking bonus damage from their weakness to ice on the initial hit, but that persistent damage also applies their weakness. So even if you're only dealing 4 persistent ice damage, if the target has a weakness 5 to ice, well now they're taking 9 persistent ice damage per round. And in my opinion, that's better than something like 2d8. Because 2d8, you can still roll 2 1s. Sure, you can roll up to 16, but getting 9 every turn, that is consistent and you can plan around it better. You don't need to worry about random chance. Not to mention, again, this is at level 8. You can do this with your cantrip bombs. This is insanely good, guys. I'm actually blown away. Because at level 7, you can make infinite level 1 bombs, only of the 2 you chose. But still, if you have those on 2 niche elements, then you can really pull those out when you need them. Perpetual Breath basically gives you more cantrip items. They can be from your own research field or a different research field. So even if you're a chirurgeon, you could take a poison or a bomb as a cantrip item effectively. And they do upgrade when you get those upgraded feats as well, with Perpetual Infusion and Perpetual Potency and Perpetual Perfection. Try saying that 10 times fast. This is great. It just widens the options that this class already has a ton of. Pinpoint Poisoner is pretty much a must-have. If you inflict poison on a flat-footed target, they get -2 to their saving throw against that poison. That's just really good. This does only apply to their initial save, however, not their following saving throws to progress or regress the poison. Elastic Mutagen upgrades your Quicksilver Mutagen, allowing you to stretch your legs and take up to a 10-foot step action instead of the normal 5-foot, and you can squish and compress your body, allowing you to make it through tight spaces as if you were one size smaller than you are. Pretty okay. I'm curious how this works with certain ancestry feats, like the elf that gives them better steps. I believe the elf lets them step twice, so I think this would allow you to step up to 20 feet, which is really good. Expanded Splash, like we talked about with the class feature, just increases the splash range of alchemy bombs to 10 feet. Greater Debilitating Bomb just makes your cantrip bombs even better. They can now inflict Clumsy 1, Enfeebled 1, Stupefied 1, or a minus 10-foot penalty to movement speed. That's disgusting. This means that for your cantrips, you can now start attacking creatures' main attributes. And Enfeebled will just reduce their total physical damage. This is... And Stupefied 1 will just shut down a spellcaster. This is insane. Merciful Elixir is a give or take. It's really useful if the situation comes up, otherwise not quite as much. As an additive into your elixir, the Elixir of Life also attempts to counteract one fear effect or one paralysis condition on the drinker. Really good to break your ally out of something, but if they're not suffering from anything, you're not going to find a lot of use of this. Potent Poisoner is great for anybody but the Toxicologist. Effectively, Potent Poisoner allows you to increase the DC of any poison by up to 4 to a maximum of your class DC, which is what the Toxicologist already uses. Unstable Concoction is weird, but it's kinda cool. It's super risky. When you use Quick Alchemy, you can attempt to make an item up to 2 levels higher than your level. When you do so, you can spend up to 3 batches of reagents. Every additional batch of reagent you use beyond 1 will make it slightly less volatile. If you only use 1 batch of reagents, you have to attempt a DC 10 flat check when you go to use it, otherwise it will explode in your face. If you use 2 batches of reagents, it reduces the DC to 8, and if you use 3, it reduces it to 6. So even in a best case scenario, this thing only has a 75% chance of even working, otherwise when it blows up, the user takes force damage equal to double the item's level. So if you're level 10 using this, and you make a level 12 item, then it blows up, well, you're taking 24 force damage. But it does allow the ability to make something and give it to somebody for them to use and pray it blows up in their face. Extend Elixir. If you ever consume your own item that has the Elixir and Infused trait, and it already has a duration of 1 minute or longer, that duration is doubled. I can't think of anything off the top of my head that this would be good with, but I think this affects like the item bonuses from like elixirs and stuff. The Invincible Mutagen upgrades your Juggernaut Mutagen, meaning you gain resistance to all physical damage equal to your intelligence modifier, which at this point is probably 5. So having a 5 resistance to all physical damage, that's pretty dang good. Uncanny Bombs is a really good upgrade to bomb accuracy. It increases its range increment to 60 feet. Keep in mind, you have to have already taken Far Lobber to take this feat, but increases range increment to 60 feet, ignores 1 armor class granted by cover, and you do not even need to make a flat check when targeting a concealed creature. You still have to make one for hidden, but you will never miss a concealed creature due to the condition. The Glib Mutagen upgrades your Quicksilver Mutagen. While affected by it, you ignore any circumstance penalties to your Deception, Diplomacy, Intimidation, and Performance. If anything is causing you a penalty there, you ignore them. On top of this, anybody can understand what you're saying, even if they don't speak your language. You don't understand anybody else necessarily if you don't speak their language, but you can speak to anybody and they'll understand what you're saying. This one is phenomenal. Greater Merciful Elixir, I see what they're doing here. These are sort of mimicking the champion's mercy feats, When you use Merciful Elixir to add an additive to your elixir, it can now attempt to counteract blind, deaf, sickened, or slowed. The fact that it can counteract slowed is really actually pretty solid, so that one might make taking Merciful Elixir more worth it. True Debilitating Bomb is nasty. Now when you apply Debilitating Bomb, you can inflict Enfeebled 2, Stupefied 2, or a 15-foot status penalty to speeds. I think the reason they opted not to allow Clumsy 2 is because if you inflicted Clumsy 2 and made them flat-footed, that would be -4 to armor class, and that would just be so unfair. This also gives you another option. If you apply one of the super simple basic effects granted by the original Debilitating Bomb feat, they only resist them on a critical success, not just a success. Eternal Elixir is really cool. You have to have Extend Elixir as a prerequisite, but instead of doubling the duration of the elixir, it makes it permanent. It has to be less than half your level, but still. When you take this, the level 6 Moderate Mist Form Elixir that I just looked up qualifies for this. The normal Mist Form Elixir just makes you concealed, which gives you a 25% chance to just dodge any attacks. They have to make that flat check. And if you have this feat, that can be permanent. You can become permanently concealed forever until you replace it with a different elixir. This is nasty. Now, one thing I probably should have pointed out earlier is that this does not work for mutagens. There is the specific elixir trait to make that last forever. It does not make mutagens last forever. It doesn't even affect mutagens. Exploitive Bomb is just another solid additive that makes your target reduce their resistance to any damage the bomb would deal equal to your level. And at level 16, that's reducing their resistance by 16 to your bombs. This means even your cantrip bomb should always be dealing okay damage. However, this does only apply to the bomb itself's original hit, not the splash damage or the persistent damage. Genius Mutagen upgrades your Cognitive Mutagen and grants the item bonus to your Deception, Diplomacy, Intimidation, Medicine, Nature, Performance, Religion, and Survival checks, and lets you communicate telepathically within 60 feet to any creature who shares a language with you. It's also two-way, so they can communicate back. This isn't quite as overpowered as I'm overreacting to make it seem, considering that spellcasters have the message cantrip at level 1, but this is still really cool, and being able to be benefiting from this item bonus to half of your skills is so good. Persistent Mutagen is sort of what I was referring to earlier. You have to have Extend Elixir, but once per day when you take a mutagen, it lasts until your next daily preparations. It never wears off until you have to prepare again, at which point you can just take it again. Something to keep in mind is this one does not have a level requirement. It's not an additive or anything, so this can still be your strongest mutagen permanently applied. And combine this with the mutagenist's ability to have 2 active mutagens at the same time. One is always on, and you can cycle out the other one, and whenever it wears off, you can just apply a different one. So cool. The 16th level Chemical Contagion reaction in the Advanced Player's Guide is so stupid, and I love it. If a creature within 30 feet critically fails its initial saving throw against a poison you inflicted, you can use your reaction to spread that poison to an adjacent creature by using the original creature as a carrier. So that makes the other creature forced to make a saving throw against that poison. Granted, it's a reaction, so you can't do this infinitely jumping from creature to creature, but it's kinda cool. It just potentially doubles the output of your poison. It's pretty solid. Improbable Elixirs effectively allows an alchemist to make potions. For those of you who aren't aware, potions are magical, while elixirs are not. So normally an alchemist does not have the ability to make potions, but with improbable elixirs at level 18, they can make a number of different potions equal to their intelligence modifier. Other than that, they function the exact same way. They can be made via quick alchemy or advanced alchemy, however, they do need to be 9th level or lower. Which is totally fair, because potions are usually much stronger than elixirs. Mind Blank Mutagen upgrades your Serene Mutagen and gains you protection from any magical mental effect. While under the Serene Mutagen's effects, you cannot be detected or revealed or scryed from any level 9 or lower effect. The example it gives is that if someone tries to detect magic on you, you will not show up. The next strongest source of magic will. As well as anything on you. You could be carrying a level 10 powerful magical artifact, but if you're under the Mind Blank mutagen and their detect magic spell is level 9 or lower, they will not sense a thing. This is crazy. Miracle Worker. Once every 10 rounds, you can administer a true elixir of life, which is the strongest elixir of life in the game, to a creature who has been dead for no more than 2 rounds. When you do so, the creature is returned to life with 1 hit point and is only wounded 1. So if your ally goes down, you have 2 more rounds to not only revive them, but also reduce them back to wounded 1 as if they've only been knocked out once. This is crazy powerful and such a good sort of penultimate ability for the healer support Alchemist. Now, I know clerics and divine sorcerers get a similar spell much earlier, about level 10, I think. Maybe even level 9. But it's just so cool that your potions are so potent, they can return life to the recently dead. Perfect debilitation? Any condition you apply with Debilitating Bomb can only be avoided on a critical success. This is disgusting. Enfeebled 2 and Stupefied 2, just at the snap of your fingers. If they don't critically succeed, they're enfeebled too. Disgusting. Of course, you have to have craft Philosopher's Stone. This is the only way in the game to be able to craft the Philosopher's Stone, unless your GM says, nah, here's the formula, in which case this feat is meaningless. But if not, this is the only way to make it. Mega Bomb is awesome. It is an additive 3 and can only be infused into an alchemical bomb at least 3 levels lower than your current level. Which is obviously 20, unless you're playing higher than 20 somehow. Rather than making an attack roll, you use an interact action to throw the Mega Bomb. At this point, it sort of functions like a crazy super fireball spell. Anywhere within 60 feet from you, it explodes in a 30-foot radius burst, and all creatures within the burst make a basic reflex save. If anybody fails the save, along with taking full damage, they also all suffer from the bonus effect, such as the Bottled Lightning inflicting flat-footed, or the Alchemist's Fire inflicting persistent fire damage. And finally, all targets automatically take splash damage as if they were the primary target, and no other splash damage occurs. Also, the item does need to be used immediately after you infuse it with the Mega Bomb action. If you wait even more than 1 action, you cannot use the Mega Bomb. And finally, the level 20 bonus for the Mutagenist is kind of eh. When under the effect of a mutagen, you don't take the drawback. It's not too bad, and I suppose if you're feral, getting rid of that final -1 armor class is pretty satisfying, but compared to Mega Bomb and Miracle Worker, it's a little bit of a letdown. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the Alchemist. Everything you need to know about them, except for maybe the actual items themselves. This was actually a ton of fun, and it ended up being 1 hour and 36 minutes recorded. This video might come out at midnight. I'm just being straight. I want to get this video out. I haven't missed an upload in 2 weeks, and I don't plan to start now, so we are going to be going right from here into the editing process. So thank you all so very much for watching. It would mean a ton if you would leave a like down there. If you want to see more, feel free to subscribe and ring the bell for notifications. I want to give a shout out, bam, to patrons. We've been getting a ton of new patrons, and I'm going to let you guys know right now. The $50 patron campaign has been updated, and it's going to be bi-monthly instead of once a month. We already have 4 players in the campaign, so it is starting this coming Saturday. So if you're interested and want to jump in on that campaign before it starts, jump on that $50 Patreon pledge. Won't be there forever. There's a maximum of 12 for 2 potential campaigns running at the same time. But that is all I have time for. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And until next time, no nat ones.